are in a series called Exodus. It's hand in hand, God leading us through the wilderness, and that's what even this song was about how we all have found freedom in Jesus Christ. A couple months ago, I saw this picture online that you're going to see right here. It's a picture of Keshia Thomas. She's from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and in 1996, she was a part of an anti-KKK rally. And she was there because in her town there was a rally for the KKK. White supremacists had gathered there in Ann Arbor, and they were there as well protesting. Well, while they were there, they saw a person coming through, a white man who had a Nazi tattoo on his arm. He had a T-shirt that clearly showed that he was not going to be for this group of anti-KKK people. And they started to chase him. And as they chased him, they ran him down, and eventually they knocked him to the ground, and they started to beat him. And they even said, "Kill the Nazi." This is what the anti-KKK people were doing. And Keshia, she later said that she felt like an angel picked her up and threw her on the body of this white man to protect him from the beatings, and she literally saved her life. This is a teenage person that's doing this. A couple months later, she's at a cafe, and a young man walks up to her and just says, "Thanks." And she said, "For what?" She said, "That was my father whose life you saved." There's a time to act. There's a time to do something in life, and we are at a place in our scripture where we start to see that Moses and the people of Israel, they are going to make it because people had faith to act. People said that we're not going to go with the king's edict. We're going to do something different, even if it may cost us our life. The midwives did it last week. We talked about them and the fear that they had of God over the king. And today we see it again. In Exodus now, we're at the narrative of the birth of Moses. But before we get to Exodus chapter 2, I want a little framing of this from Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23. In this passage about faith, Moses' parents are very prime in what happens to him and how he makes it through. So, Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, it says this: "By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that the child was beautiful, and they were not afraid of the king's edict." Faith. This is the greatest chapter in the Bible on faith, Hebrews chapter 11. And as we think about our life, I think that everybody in the world, even if they're outside of faith in God, everybody expresses faith from time to time. I bet today you put your faith in the chair you came and sat down in. You didn't give it a little stress test. You didn't try and see it's got 4 legs there. It looks like it's set up. You trusted that Pastor Eddie made sure that it was all set up nicely, and you sat down because you put your faith in it. People put faith in things all the time. You didn't build it. You didn't put it down. You didn't buy it, but you had faith today that it was going to hold up to your weight. Hebrews 11:1 says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things to come." Things that are hoped for, things that are to come in time. One day we will see the things that we have assurance of, but not right now. It is going to happen one day. I can't give you a lot of assurances about a lot of things. I can't give you an assurance that the health report that you got is actually going to turn out the way you want it to turn out. I can't give you the assurance that you are going to get a job. We have people that are out of work, and we get prayer requests every week. Even this week, another prayer request came in for somebody who is looking for jobs, and I can't give you an assurance about that. But the things that we can have assurance for are the things that God says He is going to do, and the story of the Exodus is one clear sign, a clear example of the fact that there was assurance of what they had hoped for, that there was better days to come. So what should we be setting our hope on? What should we be trying to get our faith on? And I would say that it's on the things of God. That there are better days, there are better promises. That's what the book of Hebrews is all about. I hope one day to be able to preach through Hebrews. It's a great book, a great letter that is written that talks about that there are better things to come. and God is going to keep his word. Faith is what keeps your hope fired up. The Bible says in Proverbs 13:12, hope deferred makes the heart sick. When you're hoping for something and it doesn't happen, when it's deferred over and over, your heart can actually be sick. You know what I'm talking about. When you're trying to have hope that something better is coming, and when it is deferred and it takes a week or a month or a year, it starts to make you sick in your stomach. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. And if it weren't for faith in a future hope, I don't think I could go on. I don't think I could make it in this world if I didn't have hope that one day I would be standing with Jesus, because it is so hard to live here on earth from time to time. It goes on, the conviction of things not seen. Some translations say the evidence of things not seen. It is the proof, the evidence, the conviction of things that are not yet seen, that one day it will happen. The evidence is pointing to it, even though I don't see it right now. You have a conviction because you have seen him do it in the past. You have conviction because you've read the word and you believe that the word of God is actually what it says it will do. Here's a way to think about this. I think that the word of God is very important in us as far as our conviction and faith. The character of God and the promises of God are revealed in the word of God. The character of God, we've seen it. We've studied it over and over. This is what we're doing. We're studying about the character of God. But the promises of God, what he said he was going to do, they are all revealed in the word of God. We don't need fresh revelation. The word of God has everything that we need for our life and godliness. And there was a promise given to the people of Israel that they would make it out. And right now in our story, they are in the mud pits making bricks. And even as they're making bricks and taking that straw and bringing the water and the hot sun is beating down upon them, they are holding on to the hope, to the promise that they were told in the word of God, that they would one day be set free and that God would make it right, even with all of this pain they're going through. And the faith of Moses and his sister are going to be on display today, and God will supply their needs. Let's put that verse back up, Hebrews 11:23. Read it one more time. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents, because they saw that the child was beautiful, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. The title of the message today is Moses, Protected by Faith. Moses, protected by faith. Let's start now. Exodus chapter 2, verse 1. It says this. Now a man from the house of Levi went and took as his wife a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, Hebrews use the word beautiful, here it says fine, a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. The main character, as we've been talking about in Exodus, is God, but the close second, the character that we're going to be now introduced to for the first time, is Moses. Moses. First thought here about Moses here. Moses, he's protected by faith. First thing is faith is courageous. Faith is courageous. Before we get to Moses and his faith in God, we're going to see so much of it as we study through Exodus. We need to talk about his parents. Now, the really interesting thing here is that he is born to a Levite man who takes a Levite woman. Now, they're not yet priests, that's coming, but this tribe of Levi, the Levites, they will one day become this priestly tribe. And it's interesting that he's not born to the head of the tribe or the clan. He is just born to a family. It is a normal birth. It's like Mary and Joseph. Nothing special, just a couple of people who are there in Israel, and he is born to them. He took as his wife this Levite woman. We don't have their names here. I could tell you their names, but I'm going to wait on telling you their names. We're introduced to their names in Exodus chapter 6. But right now, I think even Moses, as he's writing this, he's not mentioning their name because God is the one who is on display here and what God has done. But they do have some faith. His birth isn't spectacular. It says that they must hide the baby because of the king's commandment, the king's edict. We talked about that last week. Remember, the king, after he subjugated them, after he put them in slavery and they continued to multiply, he wanted now to kill all of the baby boys. We talked about God's providence 2 weeks ago. That's how Joseph ends up in Egypt. Remember, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, we traced the lineage, then Joseph, and Joseph is now in Egypt. He is the right hand of Pharaoh, but many years go by and a new Pharaoh comes, and this new Pharaoh doesn't know anything about Joseph. But the people are multiplying. That brought us to what we talked about last week, covenant, because they are doing what God said they would do. They are being fruitful and multiplying. They're filling the earth. And as they're multiplying and filling the earth, the king, he gets upset. And so then they start this genocide to kill the babies, to kill the kids. Every son that is born to the Hebrews, the rule said, you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. Moses' parents were there and they were responding to God, not to man. It's a very difficult thing to feel and to think of your child being killed. And if they were caught, if this baby was caught, then he would be killed. They said here he was a fine child. Now, it isn't just because all moms think that their babies are fine children. We do, when they're born, this is a fine child and a beautiful baby, and we want everybody to see this child. I know how it is, you grandparents. You're coming in, got a new grandchild, you're showing the pictures. Parents are a little bit slower to do it, but grandparents, I can see it. Michael Allen had a baby, and first thing he just shows me, a grandbaby, I'm sorry. You're like, oh my gosh, it was a miracle. Sorry. His daughter had a baby, and then he wants to show pictures because the baby is a fine child. We hold these children up here and we dedicate them. And even that fine child born to Rachel and Derek came here, and I was dedicating that beautiful child, and the beautiful child did something for the first time. Threw up on my arm while I was doing the dedication. That was a first. But this was a beautiful child, a fine child. And they were very proud of this child. The Hebrews passage we said, it refers to the baby as being beautiful. This is more than just the appearance. This is a faith statement. There's something about this child. There's something beautiful about this child. And for 3 months, they say, we will not follow what the king says. And they hide the baby. It's not an easy task. I always want you to pause and put your imagination into the text and think what it would have been like. We read one sentence, but that one sentence took 3 months. And for 3 months, they got to take a baby that is crying, that is shouting, a baby who has ear infections. And they're trying to silence this baby because if somebody knows that this baby has been born, then the baby would be killed. We have babies that come in our church. And we're thankful, sometimes a baby will cry. And first the baby cries for a bit, and dad tries to calm the baby down. And then after a while, the baby's crying a little bit more, and then people start to turn. You could imagine what's happening, right? That's what happens here. You've been on an airplane with a baby? It's hard to fly, and especially if you're trying to fly to India with a baby, it is very hard because the pressure, and then the baby will cry, and then other people start to get annoyed. I think those of us that have had children, we should have a lot more grace for those moms and dads that are trying to keep their baby calm. I get so frustrated when I see a grown person turning around like the baby can do anything about it. And this is what this family had to do. They couldn't show the baby. They had to be very careful. They had to make sure that the baby was not going to be killed. Having a child during these days would have been a courageous act of faith. If you have a girl, a sigh of relief. But as soon as the boy comes, instant sadness. This boy could be killed. Parents, your kids are a gift from God. And when families do those gender reveal parties, there's so much joy. And I have been to some of the ones you've done here, and people will swing a bat and hit a ball and it explodes. It's blue, A golf club will be hit and it's pink. Here's a baby girl. My friend, he rides a motorcycle and he put a packet in the back of his motorcycle, revved the engine, and pink powder came out, and he was going to have a girl. And these celebrations are such joyful times for us, but there were no gender reveal parties for the people of Israel. It was sadness. It was challenge. It was difficulty. It was pain. And when that baby is born, the first thing they look, is it a girl or is it a boy? It's a girl. Thank you, God. It's a boy. Hide the baby, because he may be killed. No celebration. I want you to feel what the people of Israel were feeling. This is a challenging time in the life of the people of God. In the face of fear, you have responsibilities. You have ways that you can act, and we all understand this. And sometimes when we're fearful, we have anxiety. We lash out. We do some things that we shouldn't have done. But there's times when we have fear and we just obey God. And we're obedient and we do the hard things and we're obedient to the Lord. Now, other parents, they were afraid. Other parents, even if they wanted to save their child, there was an Egyptian nearby. And they took that child and inspected the child and then threw the child into the river. So even well-meaning parents who wanted to keep their babies, they may not have been able to do it. But not Moses' parents. They had courageous faith and the providence of God, God's sovereignty working its will out. That's what providence is all about, so that the baby could live. Maybe you're thinking today, well, what parent wouldn't do anything to be obedient to God over what the world says? And I think we would do whatever we could to try to save a baby, but I see it in the world today that so many parents, they go with what the world says over even what the Bible says about their children and raising their children. You know, when a child talks back to their parent, I'm not talking about kids that have special needs. I'm talking about kids that should know better, and a parent just says, that's a strong-willed kid. We just deal with it. Parents, you are called to raise your children in the fear of the Lord and bring them up in obedience. And so I see that we do this all the time in life. Sometimes we elevate their sports careers and other things above what God would want for them. And it's great to be involved in these things, but we do it as well. Maybe not like this, but we do it with little compromises here and there. Just because the world is raising their kid, just because the king says to do this, just because the school board says to do this, you can be different, and you don't need to be the way that the world is. They go just beyond parenting. I would say that the application of this goes beyond just parenting. It goes to all of us. Where are the courageous people of faith today? Where are the people of faith who will do what is hard even in the face of great opposition? Now, you can calculate some things when you're taking risks. I think it's very important not to take too many risks with your home purchase. That's great. Be mindful of it. It's going to be an investment that maybe one day you'll pull out of. Maybe one day it'll be an inheritance to somebody else. I think with your stock picks or your mutual funds, or if you get a retirement plan, that's a great place not to be too risky. But we also then take the same thing and we apply it to our faith. And we say, you know what, I'm not going to take any risks here. I'm not going to take a step out. I'm just going to play the easy game because we lack courage. And so a question for you here, we're going to have an opportunity to pray at the end of our service. Is there something that you are lacking courage for right now that you need to ask God to give you courage for? Maybe you're facing a very challenging time. Maybe even last week you were at a different place, and then today everything has changed and you're standing at a crossroad where you can have courage or you can back out in fear. Now I'm telling you, this is the way it is. It starts a lot of times with the fear, and that's okay. You fear because you don't know what the future is. Sometimes you get some news and it makes you angry, and that anger and that fear can cause you to freeze. But I want you to take a step, and it's courage to take a step towards God and ask Him for the faith. And you're going to have an opportunity to pray for that today, that you would have some faith, for some courage at whatever crossroads you find yourself today. Verse 3, when she could hide him no longer, she took him in a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the river bank. Moses is protected by faith. Faith is courageous, but also consider this: faith takes action. Faith acts. Faith acts. Moses, he comes from a courageous line of people, but not just an ordinary mom, not an ordinary dad, a mom and dad who thought that they could, by faith, do something different and take a courageous risk here that is going to be better for him. To save the baby, they had to act. You can have courage, you can start to feel it, but you need to take a step now, and you need to act. You need to do something. So she creates a basket here. The same word right here. She took for him a basket. It's the same word for an ark. She creates a baby ark. She weaves it together like Moses had done with the big ark. Noah's ark. Noah was able to put enough animals on it and people on it, but this little ark is going to carry just one baby. Philip Ryken, he said this in a commentary I was reading, that in both instances, with Noah and with Moses, one worthy of being saved and destined to bring salvation to others is to be rescued from death by drowning. Both Noah and Moses passed through the deadly waters by riding in an ark. The vessel of salvation in this situation, just a little baby ark. And it was put together, and they put some things on it so that it would not go under the water. It would be waterproof. Last week we saw the fear of the midwives as they feared God and not man. And this week Moses' parents fear God more than man. Usually all of us, we want to launch our child when they are ready to be launched. And our children are at that stage. We married one child off, and they were just launched yesterday to move to D.C. for a job opportunity for my daughter-in-law. They're launched into the world, and we're there for them, but we've sent them out, and we can't control things anymore. Where they go to church, what friends they'll have, what place they'll live in. We can't control any of those things anymore. We've just launched them out into the world. But they have just launched their baby of 3 months into the world. 3-month-old baby. I see you patting a baby there in the back. I don't know exactly how old that baby is. But what would you be feeling if you had to take this baby and the only option you had was by faith to take a step like this? It would be really challenging. It's very interesting here that the edict of the Pharaoh was to cast the babies into the Niles, that they would die, and that's what she did. She took the baby and she launched, she placed the child into the river. Now, we don't know if she knew exactly what would happen to the baby, but by faith she acted and thought that it was going to be better than keeping the baby there at her house. Of course, she wanted the child, but the Bible says she could not hide the child anymore. It was getting too hard, so she had to do something. So Moses' mom, she made this little boat and made it waterproof. She's now a contractor. She's careful. She's figuring it out. I can picture her like I could picture my mom, making things out of nothing, figuring out how to sew patches on my dungarees. We were talking about that yesterday. That's what she called it. I don't know why. There's some other British English. I'm not sure, but Susan and I were talking about that word. And I'm going to sew a patch on your dungaree. I didn't know you could even do that. And she's going to figure it out because she wants to help her child. And so she does all these things. Look at the love of a mom. She put the thing together. She put the bitumen on it. She took the child and placed him in the ark, and then she placed it into the water. There would have been tears. It would have been difficult, but so much care is given as she does this. We've all put our babies into bassinets, but we know that we'll go pick them up after the nap or after the sleep, after the 8 hours. And yes, you ones with little babies, they will one day sleep for 8 hours. And you know that you're going to see them again. You'll see them in the morning. Here's a question for you. What area of your life right now do you need courage, but then also faith to act? Faith to act. A lot of fear from this mom, but Moses' mom, she trusted God with her child. and she acted. She did something, but then she needs to wait. We're going to see what happens, but she doesn't know what's going to happen to him. And if an Egyptian finds this baby and opens up the basket and sees it's a Hebrew child, and there's a way to know that it's a Hebrew child, you can just see, has the circumcision happened? Maybe other things about the child. In the Ten Commandments, again, because I'm so influenced by this movie, I can't unsee it all. It's because there was a Hebrew blanket around him. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's other ways to know that it's a Hebrew and not an Egyptian child, and this baby would have been killed. Would the boat tip? Would somebody find them? Would an alligator get this child? There's a lot of faith that's needed here. The reeds where they placed the baby, it would have been on the side, on the banks of the Nile, and it's a lot shallower there, and those reeds would have helped that basket not to float out too far, and it could move very slowly down the river to where it was going. Verse 4, and his sister, Moses' sister, unnamed still, unnamed, I'm not going to tell you the name. I want to tell you the name because I want to keep using her name. Miriam is her name, this unnamed sister, Miriam. She stood at a distance. So Moses has mom and dad, and then a brother and a sister, Miriam and Aaron. And Miriam, she's a force. She stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Miriam, she's used by God many times in the Bible. She's later called a prophetess. After they cross through the Red Sea, she has a song, and she leads them with a tambourine. I think it's tambourine, I'm not sure. But she's leading them with music and singing. And this is Miriam, Moses' oldest sister, watching over Moses, protecting him, staying close by, watching as she went. Now, verse 5, the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her young women walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant woman, and she took it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Now, when I read this again, back to the Ten Commandments movie, I think that there's only one Pharaoh's daughter, and we can't be sure of that. Just think about those days. Pharaoh would have had a lot of power. You don't say no to the king, especially back then. And he would have had a lot of women and probably many wives and many concubines. And so one of Pharaoh's daughters, that's how I think it's probably more true, one of Pharaoh's daughters, maybe, a highly favored daughter, I don't know, but one of Pharaoh's daughters finds this baby. And she opens up the basket and sees that it is an a Hebrew baby. Now, the reason why I favor this idea that it's more of there's many is because when Moses, you're going to hear about this next week, Pastor John's preaching next week's message, and when you hear about this, just act surprised, okay? But you can read ahead. But when Moses kills the Egyptian, he runs in fear. But if he was like Pharaoh's grandson, he wouldn't care about anything because Pharaoh is ultimately powerful. That's why I think that even Moses and Pharaoh at that time probably didn't have a super close relationship. I'm not thinking of Moses sitting there on Pharaoh's knee and playing ball with him and some of the other things that you do with your grandkids. I believe that there was probably a distance between Moses and Pharaoh. That's my idea, my interpretation. I could be wrong. It's not clear. But the way that I've seen it here, this is what I think. But what is true and what we know is that Pharaoh's daughter, this daughter, she has pity on Moses. She has compassion on Moses. Thank God and the providence of God that the little ark floated right down to the compassionate child of Pharaoh. She has pity. What providence of God. Verse 7, then his sister Miriam said to Pharaoh's daughter, this is what Miriam is so great. She struggles in other ways. We'll get there. But this time, this young girl, she has so much faith and boldness. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you? This is incredible. She just pops out of those reeds. Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, hi. What are you doing? Oh, yeah, well, I wasn't looking. I didn't see you bathing. I didn't know. I mean, not that I know you were bathing. I didn't see it. But what is this Hebrew girl doing right here? She's like, oh, what's that? A basket? What's that doing here? And then Pharaoh's daughter says, it's a Hebrew child in here. Oh, surprising. See, she knows all of these things, and yet she is so bold to act, to speak up. She probably didn't have the plan. She is just trying to figure something out here on the spot because there is no guarantee who it is that is going to find the child. She has this idea. She didn't know who it was, but now the king's daughter has found the child. And so she knows that there is a woman who can take care of this baby. Without knowing exactly what was going to happen, faith acted. Faith took a shot. Faith did something. And Miriam didn't know exactly what would happen, but this Pharaoh's daughter was different than her father. She had compassion. She was willing to do something. Where are the people of God who will do something? Where are the people of God who will act when you see something wrong, that you will step in and do something? William Barclay, he gives these examples on belief, on faith. Two kinds of belief, he says. There is the purely intellectual belief. Purely intellectual belief. This is just what you believe. You maybe have studied it. You understand it. It's intellectual. It doesn't really impact your day-to-day life. The purely intellectual belief. Here's the way we're going to think about this, all right? Here's a formula coming up on the screen. Does anybody know what this formula is for? Well, let's say you're mumbling. Circumference of a circle. Who said that? Yeah, because you're in school right now. Yes, that's great. Circumference of a circle, you get an A in geometry. You tell your teacher that you get an A in geometry. The circumference of the circle is 2 pi r, okay? Let's just take this example right here. The radius of this is 5, okay? So 2 pi r. To get the circumference of the circle, you just take 2, you multiply it by pi, 3.14, blah, 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 blah. It's incredible. How do they figure this out? Like, for me, it's just like, you just take it. Okay, pi. Whoever figured that out, wow, that's incredible. And 2, you multiply it by that, and the 5, and you get 30, what is the answer? 31.42, da-da-da-da-da, okay? It's an intellectual belief. I cannot right now tell you, and you can't either, I cannot tell you how pi really works. Some of you know how pi works, but most of us here, Jojo, you don't know how pi works. I know that. We don't understand this, but it's an intellectual belief. It doesn't matter. When's the last time you're like, let me figure out the circumference of that circle? You don't think about this. You're just like, you even forget that you could do this. All you need to do is measure the radius. You take a measuring tape, you try to put it around. You're like, how am I going to figure this out? Let me take a string, put it here, wrap it around to the other side. Now, hey, honey, can you hold the measuring tape? And she's like, yeah, give me the measuring tape. Circumference, radius. She just gets it, right? But we don't understand. It doesn't matter. It's okay to know this. You're just learning how to think. That's a purely intellectual belief. But there's another kind of belief. There's a belief that leads to action. Let's do some other math here. This is some earlier math, all right? That was geometry. This may be algebra or just even addition. You go to the store, and there's a box of cereal. The box of cereal costs $4, okay? Cinnamon Toast Crunch costs $4. I have no idea how much that costs. I have not bought cereal in a long time. $4 for a box of cereal. Now you want to get 2 boxes of cereal, so you get 2 boxes of cereal. How much does that cost? $8. Okay, $8. That's right. Good answer. You go up to the counter, you give some money, and you give a $20 bill. You're supposed to get $12 back. The person at the register gives you $5 back. All of a sudden, it's belief that leads to action. You're like, wait a second. No. I'm supposed to get $12 back. I need some more money. You've shortchanged me. You get this out in the world that there are different kinds of belief, but what about in your spiritual life? So many people live their life with this intellectual belief. They've got their heads filled with all of this knowledge. They understand the grace of God. They'll debate every person who doesn't believe faith alone, and they know exactly how to do it, and they're intellectually superior to everybody, but yet they forget the faith that acts. It's not enough just to have it all in your head. See, Moses' parents could have said, yes, one day a deliverer is coming. One day we're going to be set free, but here's my baby. I'm not going to do anything with it. They had faith to act because their belief went beyond just intellectualism. And if you are just a person who is just an intellectual with a lot of information and you're not acting on it, I'm telling you, there are people who are deep intellectuals who are so thoughtful, but then they also apply it and they act upon it. I think about Wayne Grudem. He wrote a book called Systematic Theology. It's on my shelf, and I pull that out a lot of times when I find the difficult doctrines. I think about Tony Evans. Tony Evans has a book called A Theology You Can Count On, another systematic theology book. I pull that off my shelf, and both of these books, they have, this is what the Bible says about, you take any topic, Christology, the end times, you take what the Bible says about that, and then they always get to this, an application. Because it's not enough just to have an intellectual belief. You need faith that acts. Faith to act. Are there any people here who need to act? Maybe today some of your faith has fallen asleep and it's time to wake up. Just like this family. Verse 8, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. So the girl went and called the child's mother. Finally here, protected by faith. Faith is courageous. Faith acts. And finally, faith supplies. Faith supplies. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. Now Moses' mother finally gets to do what she was built to do. Moses' mom is going to get to nurse the child. God is supplying for Moses the opportunity now to be raised in some way under godly counsel. The same woman who by faith acted with courage to put the baby in the boat is now going to be able to raise the child. See, God supplies Moses' mother to do this in his providence. When we act out in faith, when we do what we are supposed to do, God will do his part. God will supply all of our needs according to his riches in glory. This is our belief. Verse 10, before I read this, the worship team, I want them to come out. We're going to close in some time of prayer. Verse 10, when the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses because she said, I drew him out of the water. Moses, he ends up in the palace, adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. So not only is he being taught by his mom about faith in God, the God who is going to deliver, he is also being taught by Pharaoh's house how to be an Egyptian. Maybe how to take the circumference of a circle. They had great math and geometry. If you see the pyramids and other things that they did, he's learning about the world, but he's also learning about God. And these two things coming together in God's providence is going to make a deliverer for the people. Someone who can come to Pharaoh and know exactly what their beliefs are. Someone who would know about the gods that they had worshipped, but also one who had learned and heard about God, our God, the Father. God supplied for Moses with a mom to raise him in fear of the Lord, and God provided for Moses a mom to raise him in the understanding of the world. Given the fact that we know that he knows he's a Hebrew, next week you're going to act surprised, next week you're going to know he already knows he's a Hebrew. Given the fact that he already knows that he's a Hebrew, I would think that there would be a lot of reminiscing and nostalgia for him growing up. Can't prove it, but this is what I would believe about Moses. If he knew he was a Hebrew right away, then he would be one of only a few Hebrew boys that had lived of his generation. We're his peers. There's only a couple of them. We're sitting in our classroom and there's 30 kids, there's 15 girls, and there's 2 boys in 8th grade because this whole generation was almost wiped out. This is what Moses would have been thinking about. Why am I here? Why was I spared? Why was I born to a mom who had enough courage and faith to act? And some of you feel that as well. You make it out of an accident and you're alive and you say, why did I survive? Why did I make it? What am I going to do with my life and my opportunity? And Moses would have had many opportunities to think and ponder about this. I believe that he knew that he was meant for more. We're going to see it next week. But God's timing on when the more is going to be used. God's providence. Again, let me just end with these few things here. The river. It was the place that Moses was supposed to be killed, and the river saved his life. The palace, from where the edict came to kill the baby, is the place where he's going to go and live. The treasury of Pharaoh that was getting rich because he had those Hebrew slaves is going to pay his mom to raise him, and she would have done it for free. Oh, the irony of it all. Pharaoh's nemesis, another Pharaoh that's coming later, Pharaoh's thorn in the side, Pharaoh's headache is being raised in Pharaoh's house. Oh, won't God do it? This is our God. Faith is courageous, faith acts, and faith supplies. We are walking out of Egypt, out of slavery, led hand in hand by God.